Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Eating Consciously video. Today I'm going to make a pumpkin cheesecake. The first thing I'm going to do is make the crust, which is going to consist of only 2 ingredients, and I just came up with the idea for this crust like 5 minutes ago. But my friend who actually is really into raw food, she gave me a pie crust recipe that's a raw pie crust, and what it is almonds and raisins, and you just put those together in a food processor, and it actually makes like a crust-like texture that you can push into a crust and then fill it with everything. But I'm actually not going to use that for the pumpkin cheesecake, only because, as we know, pumpkin cheesecake or cheesecakes in general have to cook for a while. So what we're going to, and by the way, when I'm saying cheesecake, I mean cheese made from tofu that I'm going to show you how to make. But, so back to the point. We're not going to use the nuts, because if you cook the nuts for too long in the oven, the nuts will burn very easily. So I would think that probably after an hour or so in the oven at 350 degrees, we're going to come out with a very burnt and distasteful crust. So I came up with a way to kind of remedy that, and I think this should come out nicely. So I'm using the food processor again, as usual. I always use the food processor. If you don't have a food processor, a lot of times you can just use your blender instead. That works well. If you don't have either one of those, I highly recommend getting a food processor, because if you're going to cook a lot for yourself, you will use it. And it's definitely worth it. You can get cheap ones for like $30, $40. So it's a pretty, and they'll last a long time, so it's a pretty good investment. So in here I have half a cup of whole wheat pastry flour. And then to that I'm going to add, these are dried dates. You can usually get them anywhere. These ones are already pitted, so it makes it a little easier for you if you get ones that are already pitted, so I highly recommend trying to do that. So I'm actually going to add a cup of pitted dates. And sometimes you just want to make sure and check that there's no pits, because I've had dates before that are supposedly pitted, but it turns out that they actually are not pitted, or they have fragments of shell. So I probably should have checked those a little more thoroughly, but we'll take a risk here. Hope that they're properly pitted. So I'm just gonna pulse this together until it forms kind of like a dough. So it's a little dry, so there's 2 things that I'm going to add now. Is just a little bit of cinnamon, probably a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon would be good for this. And the next thing I'm going to add is just a little bit of canola oil. And you want to add about a tablespoon or 2 of canola oil. So we'll start with 1 tablespoon. And we'll see if it comes together. If it's still a little dry, we'll add another tablespoon. Okay, so I'm just going to add another tablespoon in there. And I'm just going to pulse that one more time. Okay, now it's really starting to come together. I'm just going to taste a little bit of this and make sure that it's sweet enough. I think this will be good. So, what we're going to do with this is take this mixture, and we're going to put it into a oiled pie dish. I actually forgot to oil the dish. So I'm going to do that now. And all you do is add just a touch of canola oil again. And I find if you have a brush, that makes it a lot easier. Unfortunately, I don't have a brush right now. So what I normally do is just, I mean, obviously I just wash my hands, but you're going to just use your hand to make sure that the whole entire thing is really well coated, because that's going to be really important, because you know how pie and cake and everything like that loves to stick to the bottom. So that'll make it a little bit easier to get it out once we take everything out of the oven. So I'm just going to empty the mixture right into here. Okay, make sure you get it all out of there. Okay. And then, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just going to smooth this around along the bottom so that it's nice and even. And then I'm just going to push it down so that it is nice and packed down in there. Just like this. And if you actually make it so that it just comes up the sides, it doesn't have to come up the side, but if you just make it so that you can see here it has like a little bit of a lip to it coming up the sides, that'll make it a lot easier for you to get it out once the pie is finished baking. So, and you just want to make sure that it's really nice and packed down firm in there. It would probably be better just to put it down on the counter and just push down, because you really want to make sure that this crust stays together. And once we put the dough in, or the filling in, that'll help it to stay together even more. But we just want to make sure we don't have crust that's falling apart on us. So I have it all pushed down in there. So as you can see, that's ready to go. That's the crust. I'm just going to set this over here.